part one of our foam rolling series here, we're going to go over a scalable intervention for rolling the soft tissues and mobilizing the posterior elements of the thoracic and lumbar spine. So this is everything from the upper back down to the lower back. What you're going to want to do, you don't necessarily have to have a 36-inch roller. You can go with a shorter one. You typically want to go with something that's a little bit higher density than something that's a little bit softer. The golden rule of foam rolling is that you don't want to spend any more than 45 seconds to a minute on any given point, and that point is going to be identified as something that's either acutely a little tender or something that feels very tight, like you're rolling over something the consistency of, say, a guitar string or a cable. So when you do find those spots, it's important that you start to tackle those areas and check in those areas repeatedly as well in your future foam rolling sessions. So to start, what you want to do is find a good spot on the floor with plenty of room around you. First, we're going to go over how to mobilize the posterior elements of the thoracic spine. This is a favorite of mine. This is a really great way to mobilize the upper back because we are so biased in being in forward flexion all the time, given that we are on our cell phones, we're on our computers, we're driving a lot. So we spend a lot of time in this flex forward state, and we very rarely get any global upper thoracic extension. So what I always instruct people to do is to start with this just below the shoulder blades. What you're going to want to do is then take your arms, wrap around very tight, tuck the elbows to your chest, and tuck your chin to your chest, kind of making a C out of your upper back. From this point here, you want to bridge your hips up. You want to take a deep breath in, and roll all the way up the upper back. Now if this is too much pressure for you, you can always take your arms and brace back into the foam roller here if it is a little too tender. So as you go through the upper back, just make a couple passes here. You might hear some pops and cracks. That's totally normal. Nothing to be concerned about. But now, especially for the upper thoracic spine, what I instruct a lot of my patients to do is especially go through and extend over each segment of the spine in the upper back. What you're going to want to do here is lace your fingers behind your head, and most importantly is bring your elbows in front of your face. At this point, you're going to start below the shoulder blades, and you're going to kind of inchworm into extension with each segment. So to start here, it would look like this. Reaching back with the elbows toward the floor. And as you come up, you want to roll down anywhere from half an inch to an inch, depending on your body size. Roll down a little bit more, deep breath in, and extend over this. Now you will hit a point in the upper back where you will tend to not get a whole lot of extension. This is usually above the shoulder blades, right about here. So as you can see, this is about as much extension as I get with my hands behind my head. One other intervention that you can do is actually straighten your arms here so that when you exhale, you can reach back toward the floor with your thumbs, keeping a straight arm. That is going to mobilize the upper back here. Now this is something that you cannot do in the lower back, just because you do not have the rib cage to support the foam roller as well. So now to roll the soft tissue structures of the upper back, you're going to want to set it up very similarly. You're going to reach around, grab your shoulder blades, tuck your elbow to your chest, tuck your chin to your chest, bridge the hips up, but now instead of rolling just the center of the back, you want to bias it toward one side or the other. So this is just a simple slight lean to the left to get into the muscle tissue structures just to the left of the spine, into the erector column, and then in between the shoulder blade and the spine and the upper back here. Now if you do find some spots that are tight and tender here, that's when you want to park it. Now if you find a trigger point in these areas, what you want to do is roll over a 1 to maybe 2 inch pathway here. This is not big swaths of territory, it's just slow, controlled movements. It's very important you relax too, as much as you can in this position. Now you want to let those muscles relax so that the foam roller can sink in and actually start to get into the trigger point. Again, you want to spend maybe 45 seconds to max a minute on each spot that you find. Now obviously you want to repeat this on both sides of the spine and the upper back. Now for the lower back. As I stated earlier, you don't want to roll through the center of the lower back and try to extend over it because that is pretty stressful to the structures of the spine. But what you can do to dig into the erectors, which are very commonly tight in people, is you want to go ahead and start with a moderate amount of pressure. Make sure it's okay. Tripod your arms back behind you. So now, as you bridge your hips up, you want to maintain a slightly rounded lower back here, unless of course you have some sort of predisposing injuries, a disc injury where that would be problematic. From here you want to immediately bias toward one side here. The territory that we're rolling through is in between the pelvis and the lower portion of the rib cage. Now you don't want to get too far out to where you roll on the ribs, it's just a slight bias to one side or the other. Now say if you find some structures here It's like, this is a little tight, but this isn't enough pressure. The scalable intervention here is that you want to add more pressure into the foam roller, and you can do that by grabbing onto the backs of the thighs. You may need to walk your heels a little bit closer toward your butt, so as you bridge up and bias toward one side, now you're adding more pressure into the equation. From here, scan through, try to find as many tight tender spots as you can. Again, 45 seconds to a minute each spot that you find. And that is the complete foam rolling intervention for the thoracic and lumbar spine.